Hello everybody, Kyle here. I'm going to review John Wick Chapter 4. I'll get started by saying that I didn't post a review of Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I did not like the film. I did not really feel like it deserved to get a review. It would have just been me complaining for like a whole video. So I'm going to talk about a film that I really did like, which is John Wick Chapter 4. Now, I have loved the John Wick series ever since the first film. I found that at one point, John Wick Chapter 2 was my favorite. After a recent rewatch, though, I think John Wick Chapter 1 is still my favorite of the series. I think it has that emotional story to it that really, I think, gives Keanu Reeves a chance to give one of his best performances. You have an impeccable cast from Willem Dafoe to Adrian Palicki, who's actually really good in it, and then you even have, I think, just expertly done pacing. It is really a perfect film. The second one is also, I think, really good. It was my favorite at one point, and I think one of the things I really love about that second one is just like the way that they portray the lore of the world, of the High Table, Continental, of the markers, and then the villain I think is pretty good in John Wick Chapter 2, along with the action in that film. It doesn't have, I think, the emotional grip that the first one does, but it is still, I think, really, really good. The third film, however, is my least favorite of the franchise, and that is mainly having to do with the fact that I think the second act of that movie is a bit of a buzzkill. I feel like you could cut out that second act of John Wick Chapter 3 and nothing is different. Sure, he has a finger and it's gone, but like, I just don't personally care too much about the side plot revolving around Halle Berry's character. I love Halle Berry. I was so excited to see her in the movie, and she does have a pretty good action sequence. However, it's an action sequence that I just personally do not connect with because I don't really care about what's happening in that sequence. So, that being said, though, John Wick Chapter 3 is still a really fun movie because the first act is great and the third act is unbelievable. Especially when you have some of the guys from The Raid in there. But for me, John Wick Chapter 4 is, I wouldn't say that it is, the best in the series. However, it has the best action in the series. In fact, this movie, I will argue, is one of the best action films of all time. Some of the action in this movie, honestly, all of the action in this movie is unlike anything we've ever seen before. There are moments where, I remember when I was little, if I would see an action film, I always wanted to see an action film that never stopped giving us action. So whenever there is a scene, it keeps on going. And I remember when I watched Black Widow a number of years, that was a very disappointing watch because that's a film that I think was made for the idea of unrelenting action. And Black Widow, unfortunately, has poorly shot action sequences along with pretty short action sequences. Here, this is what I think a number of movies, including the most recent Snake Eyes film, I say most recent, it came out like 2 years ago, but I think Snake Eyes has to be one of the worst action films in a number of years, and I'm watching John Wick Chapter 4, and it's just showing you how it's done. I've been listening to interviews with Chad Stileski, and he talks about how, like, he respects shaky cam, but when he's shooting his films, he doesn't really tend to use it, because the thing with shaky cam is there are some directors like Paul Greengrass who are an expert at shaky cam. But when it comes to scenes like this in John Wick, where you're supposed to be focusing on these characters, you're supposed to be immersed in the experience, it's so much better to not use shaky cam and to use, whether it's an overhead shot, a oneer. There's this one overhead oneer that is just unbelievable. John Wick has this dragon spray shotgun that he's like shooting at people through the walls, and you see it from above, like the sky, and it's like a video game. But I love how you get to see the bad guys on the other side of the wall that John Wick isn't seeing, and when he blows the gun that just shoots out this fire through the wall, you just see it hit the other guy. And if it was shot just in a traditional way, it would have probably been some sort of quick cut. It could have been in slow motion, but the fact that they ended up making this oneer overhead shot is just simply brilliant. The cast, I shall say, about John Wick Chapter 4 is just splendid. A lot of them are new additions. A lot of them are actors that we've seen in action films, we've seen in other movies, like Donnie Yen, Haruki Sanada, and even Clancy Brown, who has, I wouldn't say a huge role, but a significant one, because he's kind of like the messenger. In John Wick Chapter 3, they had the character of the Agitator. And this one is, I think, the Harbinger. But they couldn't have gotten a more perfect actor to play it, because there's just this one line that he keeps on saying, fire, in the movie. And Clancy Brown was the perfect choice to get. I think the action just is so good that it does somewhat, I think, make up for, I don't want to say lackluster, but the story in John Wick Chapter 4, I don't think is as good as some of the other John Wick movies. In fact, even though, like, as I said, John Wick Chapter 3 is my least favorite of the series, I think that the one thing that movie might still have over this one is that the story in that film is centered on John Wick. And that's the same for all three John Wick movies. But this one, it's more open to the world that John Wick inhabits. And that is something that, at times when I'm watching this film, I don't feel like I am fully connected to John Wick. There's a great character in this movie. She's a new character. Her name is Akira, played by Rina Sawayoa. Sorry if I'm butchering the name, but she is amazing. She's one of my favorites in the film. That being said, she's only in the movie really in the first act of the film, and then she's gone. In a similar way to what they did with Halle Berry in John Wick Chapter 3. Now, it serves a story purpose, but a lot of the stuff that she's in feels even more so that the film is about her. And then the same could be said about Bill Skarsgård, incredible villain. There's so many names you call him. I think they even said the Frenchman at one point. But he is like one of the guys I think is connected to the High Table. And he's this main character that is essentially the antagonist of the piece. And at times it feels like it's his movie, where it's focused a lot on him. Keanu, I will say with Keanu, and this might be a little controversial, I think this is my least favorite performance of his in the John Wick series, but I'm just strictly speaking character-wise. Action-wise, this is by far, I think, the farthest he's ever pushed as an actor, but sometimes I'm watching this movie, and as I said, I'm not connecting with John Wick like the others. Especially in the first movie. Watching the first John Wick, it is centered on him. The opening of the movie essentially is all about his daily life and his lifestyle. And here, there are so many characters that it sometimes feels like it loses focus on its central one. It plays a little bit more into John Wick as the film progresses, especially towards the end, but that is one thing that I kind of wish we got a little more of. Some of my favorite action sequences, though, are by far, you have this Osaka Continental Hotel sequence that is like 20 minutes long. Swords, nunchucks, guns, everything. I love how the opponents are wearing like bulletproof armor, so they're just using their arms like they're Wonder Woman to deflect the bullets. It also makes for, in other scenes in the movie where John Wick is trying to kill these characters, you really see how hard it is to kill them, because some of them, they just don't die. And there are moments in the scene in Osaka where they just keep coming, and you're like, how far can he push himself to fight them? The sequence in the Berlin nightclub is just outstanding, with, the music, the cinematography, which I think this is one of the most beautiful movies ever made. The cinematography is just a work of art. There are moments in the film where I was like distracted from the film itself, just staring at how beautiful it looked. Like every color is displayed. I think about 30 minutes in, I'm like, it's a color we haven't seen? Yellow. And then like the last act of the movie is just saturated in yellow. And I was like, yes, every color. But I think, the true meal of this movie is the Arc de Triomphe of the Paris sequence, where cars are just driving past all of these men fighting each other. Dogs are jumping on cars. There's a sequence where I think John Wick gets hit by a car and then another car. And I understand, it might not be realistic, but at the same time, it's so cool. So you deal with it. There's a fight that I mentioned with the overhead shot, but then there's a stairway fight. It just ups the ante with every fight in this film, and you're never once as an audience member feeling let down. I feel like movies like John Wick Chapter 4, movies like Scream 6, movies like even Creed, but I wouldn't even say, not Creed, I would say Avatar. These are films that give the audience what they want. And that's, I think, hard for some studios to do. I'll say Shazam! Fury of the Gods, which is my least favorite film of the year so far. That's a film that I feel like it doesn't do what the first Shazam did. It's not as charming. Sometimes it's a little bit irritating to watch. And sometimes it honestly feels like they have just a huge, bowl of mixed potential that they have left out to dry. Did I say mixed or missed potential? But John Wick is a franchise that every film delivers to the audience what they expect to see, but also gives you even more of what you want to see. And that's something that you have to respect. And it's something that even some of the biggest studios today and some of the biggest movies are just unable to capture. So I think I gotta say, I think John Wick, definitely, it's my favorite film of the year. I almost am scared to see any more films this year after this, because I don't know how you can compete with how great this film is. So, let me know. Did you see John Wick? What are your thoughts? Did you like it? Did you not like it? And, I mean, if you didn't like it, I would love to hear why you didn't, because I don't know how you can't like this movie. But, anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye.